Yeah.
How are you doing, Julian?
All good, mate.
Right.
Yeah.
Not bad, mate.
Looking forward to hopefully a weekend of boxing, mate.
Pardon?
I'm hopefully looking forward to a weekend of boxing, just like everybody else.
Well, Savannah fights this weekend. Good
Yeah,
fight.
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed for the silent assassin. Well, we'll go straight in. We'll come to Savannah in a bit. I was going to go straight in with this Conor Benn thing. Has it happened before? Bricktop's come out and he said there's a certain fighter failed a dope test for WBC, didn't mention any names, very cute, very legal, savvy. Is that aimed at Conor Benn because they were diving in and diving out of that WBC testing program, wasn't he? If it is his second time, he's got to be for high jump, and that's why they're screaming for 4 years. The Gads mentioned it as well, hasn't he? But he didn't. I think he mentioned his name, didn't he? Bricktop didn't, did he?
Right.
So I don't know. What do you think to it all?
Well, that's the thing, because I got sent something a couple of days ago saying, oh, Conor Benn's previously failed or had an adverse finding. And I kind of brushed it off, really, because you're going to get that. But once it starts getting reported, especially like by the Daily Mail, by the same people who reported the more recent one, and if Gareth A. Davis is now putting his name to it, nobody's going to do these things lightly, because they're all open to getting sued and totally refused access. So there's got to be something in it.
I've seen the Ben Shalom interview. He considering he was sending what he was sending to Dennis, threatening lawyers, this and that. He came out and did an interview yesterday. He said, "No, I don't want to say too much. I don't want to be getting lawyers on my case and all that." Well, what about when you were screaming and shouting and calling Dennis outrageous just for coming on my channel and saying that you don't pick the phone up? That's rude. Do you know what I mean? So boots on other foot, it's not nice. But I will say this to him: if he wants to roll the dice with Dennis, I hope he's got plenty deep pockets, plenty of money, because Dennis likes to have his day in court, and he's come a cropper it past. But you roll your dice, don't you? You roll it, and it's like a bit like when he flipped that coin with Frank Warren for 50 grand. Sometimes you get caught up in the moment, don't you? And a bit of pride gets involved, doesn't it? Yeah. But that Ben, I personally think he's on the spectrum, me, and I'm not bothered what people think about me saying that. I think he's a bit slow when he comes over. I think he's a young lad. He's at his depth. That's what I think. And I'm not the only person saying that. But when you can't answer straight, we are, oh, not want to say no. You're not media savvy, are you? I don't think he's ready for that position, mate. But hey ho, what do I know?
Well, what sometimes happens in business, Russell, and you'll know this, is when companies go through really tough times and they've had like a really strong MD or chief executive officer, sometimes they put caretaker people in that position who are quite easy to influence, and they're quite steady and stable. And you know that certainly the paymasters can maneuver that person quite easily. They don't want someone who's confrontational or volatile, and you just need to settle things down. I think Sky Sports have needed to settle things down over the past couple of years with what's happened with Eddie. They certainly don't want someone who's, you know, volatile, difficult to control, very opinionated, never stops talking on social media. So Ben Shalom, for me, is probably quite a strategic appointment. And it might be something that's just like, get Sky back on, get the program working again. 2-3 years time, they might want someone who's a bit more of a stronger character to run the show. That's how I see it. I think he's a temporary position.
You see, I will lead to believe, and a few people were saying this, but they're just going to share dates out between, you know, your Mick Hennessy's, and Carl Greaves, Barry McGuigan's, Dennis Hobson's, you know, all them old stagers.
Mm-hmm.
But I think after Eddie, they didn't want anybody coming in who probably knew a little bit more than them or were a bit cuter. They wanted somebody who they could say, put kettle on and go do this, go that kind of thing. They played it safe, haven't they? But I ain't got a problem with Ben Shalom, but obviously you know, he's going on about suing people and all this way. He didn't want to say out yesterday, did he? Because he didn't want to be sued. So I wish they'd sue me.
The only problem I've got, I kind of like him. I don't mind him, but the only problem I've got with the likes of Ben Shalom is
inexperience.
It's like, yeah, he's inexperienced, but it's like everybody, you've got to be accountable. So we saw some of those mismatches that Fraser Clark had, and Fraser Clark was so frustrated. Somebody needs to just say, do you know what? I'm in charge. I own it. I'll take responsibility. That was awful. But when they start turning around and say, we're going to have to look into it. I don't know how this happened. I don't know how these opponents were selected. Just own it. You know, I was always taught that the guy who was in that position at the front, he has to take responsibility.
Yeah, quite rightly so. When did he start taking these PEDs? We're not going to get to the bottom of it at the moment, but is it what it wasn't paying who were knocking him about, and it looked like he were going to quit and all that? I don't know, because since then he's gone up from strength to strength. It's like miraculous, isn't it, what's happened with Conor Benn? But looking back a few years, do you know them fighters that we always come out with things like, he's most improved fighter has come out of nowhere and stuff like that? And I'm going to reel some names off here, but I'm not going to say that these people are dopers. I'm just going to reel names off. Dylan White, he was most improved guy at one point, wasn't he? After his original 2-year ban. And he got caught, didn't he? With Rivers fight. But at one point, he was most improved fighter. But if you go back last few years, Liam Williams was most improved fighter, wasn't he, at one point? Knocking everybody out, but he didn't fail the dope test. Max Hughes is most improved fighter in the last 18 months, 2 years, isn't he? He hasn't failed the dope test. So hard work can pay off, can't it?
Yeah. For me, one of the big signs is when this real. I watched Paulie Malignaggi this morning, or I listened to him as I was driving in to drop my kid off at school. And it's once they start blowing people away. You know, you can learn your craft and you can gradually improve and get to that stage with guile and everything else. But when you're blowing people away, and I think it was Malignaggi said this morning, he barely hit Algeria with that shot. Obviously, it was a solid shot, but it says he didn't massively load up because he hit him. And the effects of that was like massive. I know Algeria had been on the sofa for a while, but it's the same thing with, was it Van Heerden, whatever it was called?
Chris Van
Heerden. These guys are durable guys. These are people who have been in with the Spencers, the Crawfords, or the Pacquiaos. Yeah, they're kind of fading to some extent, but they're still durable guys. And this is somebody who had L plates on 2 years ago who's blowing them away. And for me, that's just like such a telltale sign. It's like almost like, where did you come from? Where have you come from to put performances in like that?
Yeah. Where's this Dr. Usman disappeared to?
I heard something, it might have even been on Talk Sport, where Tyson Fury had allegedly said that he was still going to be part of his camp and he was a good man. That's a questionable decision if the things that people are saying are true. But listen, it's like anything, yeah? You're on social media. If suddenly there's an accusation against you and you just remove yourself off social media, silence speaks volumes, doesn't it? You've talked about this before. You get accused of something, you've done nothing wrong, you front it out.
No.
I'd front it out. Some people don't. Some people send threatening letters. Some people get involved in all kinds of legal wrangles and things. Someone accuses me of something, I'm going to come out and say, all right, you better have deep pockets, but this is what happened, etc., etc. It's just disappeared off the face of the earth.
Yeah, but when somebody accuses somebody of something on social media, most of the people who do YouTube are toe rags, aren't we? Folk got criminal records and this and that. So that's how I look at it. How can we sue for defamation? How can I? I've been done for all sorts, drug addicts and car thieves and stuff like that. I'm not going to get any defamation because you put yourself out there, you're there to be shot at, aren't you?
But that's the frustrating thing, though, because it doesn't make you wrong, does it? Just because you've done things wrong in the past doesn't make you wrong, mate.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. But this Dr. Usman, nobody accused him of giving Conor Benn anything, did they really? But he's just disappeared, but he's not been accused of anything. So I think that's a bit smelly. He's even a bit patsy.
It's the link, isn't it? I mean, what he was saying, we've heard from other people, it's easy to cheat a dope test. He was saying that VADA, that barely turn up at your house. You might enroll in the program, but it costs an absolute fortune to fly these guys out and transport these guys out to do these random tests. So it costs a fortune. He was just saying, look, cheating the test is easy. There are lots of ways we can flush it out of the system. And, you know, you'd have to, well, he said you'd have to be an idiot to fail a dope test, didn't he? Those were his words, not mine. So I guess what we're saying is anybody who's failed a dope test is an idiot.
Well, you are, aren't you? If you fail one, aren't you, for taking it in the first place?
Well, you're an idiot for taking it, exactly. But that's the point. I think what's really frustrating for me, I'll be careful how I say this, but all these things, all these clips and interviews are coming out now over the last 5, 6, 7 years, what people are talking about. And we've said it on here before, and I know that the Dripping Tap said it, Kent said it, you know, Rico Terry said it. There's a real problem in boxing, but what we're asking now this last week is actually how deep does this problem go? Are we, when someone's saying like Dr. Usman, he said probably 80-90% of people are taking something. And then I saw an old clip of Tyson Fury. I think it was 7-8 years old. And someone actually outright asked him about doping and said, you know, and he said, quote Tyson Fury, everybody's on it. And whoever was interviewing said, are you on it? And there was like a lengthy pause and he just raised his eyebrows. I thought that was a really concerning thing, especially when you look at where Tyson Fury is. And once again, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute Tyson Fury is taking anything illegal. What I'm saying is, someone asked me, are you doing this? Absolutely not. You just shut it down straight away. But when somebody says everybody's doing it, what are you actually saying? I'm doing it. Everybody's doing it. I'm doing it. Is that what you're saying?
I remember years ago, before I started smoking weed, I was a teenager, and somebody said, yeah, everybody's on it. They were saying to a relative of mine, and I went, well, I'm not on it.
And that's the thing.
I'm mad up for it.
And that, listen, I train guys at domestic level, but when they say everybody's on it, I'm telling you for a fact, Sykes wasn't on it. Sykes had been tested for all these championship fights. Nothing ever came back. He wasn't on nothing performance enhancing. Might have found a bit of alcohol in his system and stuff like that. So I hate when people say everybody's on it, but then I have to question myself and I say, is the fact that, for example, Sykes was clean, is that why we didn't get to that European and elite level that Dr. Usman was talking about? Maybe it wasn't a lack of skills on Sykes's half. It was maybe just being clean and doing it right. Maybe it's absolute. I'm asking the questions. Maybe it's limiting now at domestic level if you're not taking something.
Right. At the beginning, it was always going to be hard work to get a super middle to fight a couple of pounds above light middle, a welterweight, a small welter, to put, you know, that weight on a meat in the middle. You've got one coming down, which is dangerous, one going up, which can be as equally as dangerous, and he's taking PEDs. And the Calla Sauerland interview I'm going to come to, Calla turned around after, I think it was IFL Umar, asked him, have you got any qualms about putting Christopher Eubank Jr. in with Conor Benn, you know, considering, you know, he's coming down in weight. And Frank Warren said he could only rehydrate to 160, but I heard it was 162, so I don't know if Frank's got that wrong. But Calla turned around and said, no, he didn't have a problem with it, considering, even though he asked him, well, there's a guy failed a PED test, and you've got one guy depleted in weight and can't put any on. And Calla Sauerland said, I've got no problems with putting him in with Conor Benn. I thought, when I seen that, I nearly collapsed, because that's somebody who's obviously never had a fight in his life, never had to make weight, had everything done for him, all his privileged life, private school, all that. I thought that were in bad taste. And I thought he hung himself out to dry there. What do you think?
Well, if I'm Eubank Senior and I'm watching that interview, and it may be even Chris Eubank Jr., if he has like a kind of somber moment, I'm thinking, this is the guy who's plotting my career path. This is the guy who's representing me and looking after me. And he's happy to put me in a ring with somebody who's tested for a banned substance, someone who's forcing me to drag my weight right down. And the one thing I don't think any of us can forget, we've all seen those photographs of Eubank Jr., haven't we? He wasn't, I've heard the word shredded. It wasn't shredded. It was skinny. And I said
skeleton muscle were lost on that photo. You can tell, can't you?
Yeah, and he's also got 2 pounds still to lose, and he looks so emaciated and so unwell. And I remember saying to you before, I said, I don't think the fight will happen because it's so dangerous. And wow, I just looked at him, and a gust of wind would have knocked him over. And why did they do that? Why would you put Conor Benn, okay, unproven at domestic level, against Chris Eubank Jr., who might not be the world champion, but is a world-class middleweight? You're talking about that much difference in size and that much difference in ability. Why would you do that unless you knew something that we didn't know?
Money.
Yeah.
To get numbers in for the sound. I mean, we're all unhappy about what's going on, but was it all a bit dangerous and desperate from all parties? Calla and Eddie, Ben and Eubank, that it's about money for them, isn't it? Fighters anyway, so it's always about money, but they are materialistic young lads, aren't they?
Very.
Very materialistic. So to them, it's about money. They just look at it as another day in office, don't they? But all the people behind these two who were doing all the moves, because there'll be things that have gone on behind the scenes that Ben and Eubank Jr., the two fighters, not the dads, there'll be things that have gone on that they'll not even get to hear, even though it's their team. Do you know what I mean? We know that, don't we? Know what goes on. Yeah. But do you think we're all a bit desperate and from beginning and how it's ended up? It's how not to make a fight, isn't it?
It was
you're inviting PED and all that. And also say that Eubank hadn't failed the dope test, even though they tested him as they were leaving the hotel, didn't they? Eubank hadn't failed the dope test, but he'll have been doing his best to, let's say, get that weight off, won't he? And thinking, what can I take here that's legal to get this off? Because I'm struggling to get this weight off. And he was struggling, wanting to get that off. He would have never got that other 2 pound off, surely, would he?
His face and cheeks were so dry and almost cracking, and his skin colour, I always say when a guy gets on the scales, the first thing you look at is if he got a healthy glow or not. And when they've got that healthy glow, they've done the weight okay. But when they look dry and tired and drawn, you're like, hang on a minute. Now, I'll go as far as to say that is the worst fighter I've ever seen. That photograph is the worst photograph I've seen a fighter making the weight. And I had a fighter who, in his back end of his career, struggled to make the weight. It would literally be half an ounce under for 10 minutes, and that would be it. And then everything's back on. That photo absolutely made me distraught. That might sound really strong. I felt, wow, why are you doing this to yourself, Chris? Yeah. Why would you risk your health for 4 million? It's not worth it. You're already a wealthy young man. You might get 2 million somewhere else. Why would you put yourself through this? I just thought, awful, absolutely awful. He's made the decision to do this. His father didn't support it. But if anybody who's watching, you go in the gyms, you must think, what are you talking about? This guy's moved it from 9 stone to 9'4", featherweight, super featherweight. It's no big deal. It's 4 pound. Anyone who knows, who's close to boxing, it's not like a 4 pound difference between your man in your street. If you get a featherweight in a gym, spar a super featherweight, you look at those two together and you'll see a big weight difference. If you get a small welterweight and standing next to a middleweight, the middleweight will absolutely dwarf him. So people said to me, and they said on this page, Russell says, what are you talking about? I can lose 6 pounds in a day. And I just thought, you've no idea what's involved. This is a guy who's...
They've got no to lose anyway, have they, boxers? No nothing, anyway, is it? It's
nothing to lose. It was 2 more pounds. We'd have... I worry now, if that fight had gone ahead, let's be honest, with the loaded gloves, let's put it as it is, as I said before, I said we might see an injury. We might see something that's going to scar boxing forever.
What do you mean by loaded gloves? Do you mean like them Grant gloves?
Someone who's juiced, someone who's effectively got a loaded
Oh,
gun.
yeah. You mean somebody on PEDs who's
Yeah, someone on PEDs, and you know, there's nothing libelous about what we're talking about. We're making statements of facts that this drug is a masking agent. This drug increases testosterone levels. This drug can be taken as part of a cocktail. That's not coming from you or I. This is coming from all these experts who have been reporting on this for the past week or so, however long it's gone on now. This is not the nasal spray that Billy Joe Saunders had, and there was kind of grey areas around that. This is not something that, for example, UCAD or other agencies might allow. This is not recreational. This is something that's quite a powerful thing for people to take, and it's an indicator of what else might be going on.
Yeah. All this from Eddie Hearn, he's innocent till proven guilty. I'm not buying into that because he's failed the dope test. So you're guilty straight away. You've now got to prove it other way around. So Eddie keep repeating that all the time. He's done that interview on DAZN, hasn't he? DAZN Boxing, YouTube, with the DAZN people. But the comment section's turned off. And he did one with Coogan. So he is a coward, like what Simon Jordan said. He is a coward, in my opinion. But Conor Benn, in my opinion, is guilty until he can prove that he's innocent. Not innocent till proved guilty. If you go for an MDT in Morelands prison down here, you fail for cannabis, you get 28 days added onto your sentence. You then get your outside lawyer involved to test the B sample. Yeah, and they crack on with it. But you are guilty until you can prove innocent. But the B sample is the same as the A because they pour it out one cup. Nobody in the prison world has passed the B test and got acquitted on it. And Conor Benn won't. But all this about he's innocent till proven guilty. No. And then towards the end of the interview, Eddie went on to say, well, it wasn't done correctly and contamination. Or they're trying to do it get him off on a technicality, aren't they, basically? Procedure wasn't done correctly.
We covered it last week. We said the B sample, because everyone keeps talking about the B sample. And even Sauerland said the same thing. They asked him about the B sample. Conor Benn triggers the B sample. There's only him who can say, I want to see the B sample. And if he hasn't asked for that yet, why not?
Why not?
And it's as simple as that.
Well, that's why they didn't want to do these interviews with the Guardian, Adam Cattrall and all them hacks, you know, like Jeff Powell and people like that, Jordan Stewart, because they would have said, why aren't you sent for B sample? When did you take the UCAD test after the BARDA test? What were the difference? And why aren't you sent for B sample? And if you have sent for it, can we see some paperwork? Can you show us something? They can't. They've had to shut everything down, haven't they? And wheel Eddie and Caller out. Conor Benn's nowhere to be seen, is he? They're not going to put him in front of a camera because he's going to drop his head in it, isn't he? Beginning all that, won't he, in his heated seats?
He's not smart enough, is he? No disrespect. He's
not
smart.
Two brain cells in his head.
Yeah.
Right. Big Meech. Anthony Joshua, aka. He's in no man's land, isn't he? He's not 40% back with Fury. He's way off getting a world title shot now, isn't he? Where is he now? He's in limbo, isn't he? Unless they can get Usyk stripped.
So the Joshua fanatics, and I don't mind AJ, by the way, but the Joshua fanatics will be commenting on your page, haters with this, with that, the other, on the world, not forget money, I don't want to hear Olympian, two-time heavyweight champion. It's all academic, right? We're talking about today, the here and now of the world heavyweight picture. We're not talking about Joshua's history. Every time Eddie Hearn gets interviewed, he reels off Joshua's CV. You can only use that for so long. So the here and now is lost 3 of his last 6 fights. He's lost his last 2 fights. He's right down the pecking order. He's not mandated for any belts. He's just, for whatever reason, he's not taking up the biggest opportunity he's probably going to have in the next 2 to 3 years. We've got Joe Joyce coming through now. Everybody's fun heavyweight. Everybody wants to see. We've other people coming through who are going to get heavyweight title shots. Anthony Joshua right now, and this might sound strong, on a elite heavyweight world picture is irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean, Big Meech, he's in no man's land. Conor Benn, he's in no man's land at the moment, isn't he? Dillian White, where's he? He's in no man's land, isn't he? Knocked out by Povetkin, knocked out by Joshua, knocked out by Fury. But he's ahead of the game, dough-wise, like Joshua, isn't he, or Big Meech. Canelo, his deal's finished with DAZN. So Eddie's big four there, Meech, Big Meech, Ben, White, and Canelo. Do you see Canelo wanting to go with Eddie Hearn after that? I don't, because I see big offers coming from Heyman or Bob Arum to freeze Eddie out. It looks like Eddie's exposed and it just needs somebody just to push him over a cliff now, doesn't it? And one of these lot be queuing up for it, won't they now? What do you think?
I think Eddie Hearn.
Oh, hang on a minute, I forgot something. There's always Campbell. Hands of Foam Hatton.
Bless him, yeah. Fine young man, nice young man. I'd say if he gets an English title in his career, that'd be something to be really proud of. And
that's an overachievement for his ability, isn't it?
I would leave it at that, and that's nothing detrimental. Certainly more than I would have ever dreamed of achieving if I'd gone pro. So good for him. Nice kid, works hard. The difference between him and some of these GB kids at a similar level, you can't even measure. It's immeasurable.
Yeah. So Eddie's stable's depleted, isn't it? Do you think that Eddie's been outmaneuvered by all and sundry? Because it looks to me like they've all wanted to put him in his place, and a lot of them.
I think Eddie's been outmaneuvered by himself. I think it's just
his ego.
His ego has just gone into overdrive, because I'll always prefer to be balanced. Yeah. 10, 12 years ago, British title fights were, in sports centres. Eddie's done some brilliant things for British boxing. He's got some of his fighters who really didn't have that kind of skill set, as far as I'm concerned. He's made them very rich young men. There's obviously the other side where he lets people go. Eddie's done some brilliant things for British boxing. A monopoly is never good. But what's happened is started to believe his own hype, his own words, and he's just become so egotistical. He's started making mistakes. And I don't think the others have had to outmaneuver him. I do think he's outmaneuvered himself. And this DAZN thing, whichever way you break it down, this is an app that nobody's heard of. And that's a fact. And even Gareth A. Davis said a couple of days ago, he just says, DAZN, who are going nowhere fast. People don't know they are, Russell. Kent said it yesterday. He's looking to make it the Netflix of sport. It's not going to happen. And it was a disastrous move. He's now on a limited time frame. If I were the paymaster at DAZN, I'd be asking, what the hell's going on? Okay, there might be decent things happening in the US, but he was going to take over boxing full stop. And in Britain right now, he's not in a strong position, but more so, even if he's, his reputation's in tatters, it genuinely is. And people are saying, I keep reading all these comments that Eddie will get away with it. Don't worry about this. The B sample will come back fine. Eddie will be back. I don't think so, because, I always try and give a parallel in life. It's a little bit like, the most important thing is public opinion. That's the most important thing. Now, if you look at, I don't know, like the Queen with Lady Diana a long time ago, and you shouldn't put the flag at half-mast and recognise her as royalty, etc. And then if you look at, I don't watch this stuff, by the way, but if you look at like the Meghan Markle, Prince Harry, they thought they were massive egos. They were bigger than the monarchy, bigger than life itself. And the public opinion turned on them so quickly. Now, what's happened right now, not just boxing, but general casual fans and a wider set of people, the public opinion, Eddie Hearn's reputation right now is that people have just thought, who do you think you are? Because you can blame Ben, absolutely, Ben's team. So why is it Eddie Hearn's fault? Because Eddie Hearn was trying to put the show on, knowing all of that. And I don't think he could sink any lower in terms of public opinion right now. I think it's, you said the words yesterday, I never use these words on your show, but you said the words, you're a scumbag. And do you know
well,
what?
there is words from an old IFL interview years ago.
Scumbag behavior. It's absolute scumbag behavior to.
Has it happened before? It's what we don't know, isn't it?
We don't know. The best way to answer that without incriminating us is to say it wouldn't surprise you if it had happened many times before.
Yeah. Do you think Eddie spread himself too thin across the Australia, New Zealand, Italy, Spain, Germany? All these countries have been at it with these shows, and some of them have been shockers. But has he spread his scent too thin, and it's come back to bite him on arse? Has got too much going on up here. His head must be spinning constantly.
Yeah. Some of the times the problem with a guy like an Eddie Hearn, or someone who's really just such a powerful person, very, very rich, is they always say that a good leader listens to the team, listens to the people. I think Eddie Hearn just does what Eddie Hearn wants, and when you're surrounded by yes men, a little bit like Anthony Joshua, it doesn't do you any good in the long run. You've got to have strong people behind you who will debate things with you and argue with you and say, Eddie, that's not a good move. Now, whilst we're hanging Eddie out a little bit for this, if he had strong people under him, say, hang on a minute, you can't put this show on. Whoa, listen, this is a bad move, mate. This is going to get out. Let's cancel the show. It's going to look horrendous. But he didn't, did he? So he's either not listening to his advisors, he's either getting badly advised by his legal team, or a combination of both. But you got to listen to people. You've got to have good people behind you, mate. Such a massive organisation, you've got to have really strong people behind you.
Yeah, it's like this billboard. I was screaming about billboard the other day, and I said, why don't we just go somewhere else for them? But obviously, Cameron uses these other people, and they take like a month to sort it. But when somebody says a week, and I'm like, well, said a week, it's been 2 weeks. I like to scream. But sometimes you have to listen to your team. But getting back to Eddie's team, do you feel that there'll be people in his team all have been thinking, God, I don't think this is a good idea, but Eddie wants to go along with it, so are we to argue with him? Do you think? Because I've seen Dennis make mistakes, and I've said, hey, Den, don't do that. What do you know? Sometimes you're not always right if you're boss, are you? Do you know what I mean? So that's why you can't have yes men around you. Could you imagine Frank Smith saying, Eddie, now we should just pull out? Eddie's going to go, what? We're going to lose all them pound notes. We can't do that. Yeah, but what if it all comes out? Now, the point I'm going to get to now is this. The Boxing Board of Control sat on it, didn't they, 13 days before they pulled the show. Would they have pulled it if it didn't get leaked? I don't think they would. I think they'd have done a Dylan White Rivers. And I thought they were all on the same page. Let's keep it all in-house. Everybody shut your pie holes. But Eubank's old man obviously got wind of it, didn't he? And I've a sister as well. She goes with Frank Smith. So there's a leak somewhere, and it's ended up in Daily Mail, which I'm pleased about. I'm pleased about, because I was in Manchester at the time. And when I heard, I was doing cartwheels. Do you know what I mean? Because of what Dripping Tap said. And I said to him, don't be coming out with something like that on my channel. In fact, I said to him in video, allegedly, didn't I? And you said to me, he can't be saying that. Well, the kid were bang on, wasn't it? Dripping. He got it bang on. And he said he spotted other people. And we spoke about that. So let's see what happens. But these other people are obviously very cute with how they're doing it, aren't we? But all you cheats out there, you should be embarrassed. You come on TV chatting this. And then when they get caught, they go missing, don't they? Eddie's gone missing, hasn't he? Conor Benn's definitely gone AWOL, hasn't he? Where's he?
What I struggle with is, everybody's gone really, really quiet. You can't get these people off social media. You always say this, right? You can't shut them up, right? No. So we've got strength coaches, strength conditioning coaches. We've got a performance director. We've got the head coach, Tony Sims. Okay, everybody's putting out very, very short statements, but we'll have to see what happens. You know what I'd want to know? First of all, if that was me, I wouldn't have all these people in camp, by the way. I'd be quite vocal about, I'd be open about this, and I'd say, well, I'm going to have a look what's going on, because this has happened on my watch. This has happened in my gym.
You mean
I'd
if
wanna
you were
know
Tony
what-
Sims?
Yeah, I want to know what's going on. He might have had that conversation, by the way.
Well,
He
if
might have-
Tony Sims didn't know nothing about it, how many others in that gym are using? Because
But
usually
as a-
when one person's doing really good, the best mates, I've noticed this, you know, well, what's your secret? And if they've
Listen.
confided and let them know.
I'll give you an example, okay? Josh Warrington used to come over with Sean O'Hagan, and they used to train with Sykes at Central, at the gym in Batley where I was, Mark Early, Sean, right? Those two kids were competitive, and we used to record the stuff. So they do the bar bag, you heard the bar jumps, and we used to do bar jumps in a minute. And they were fit lads. Sykes and Warrington were fit lads, dedicated kids. And on a bad day, they might get 56, 57 bar jumps. And on a good day, they might get 61. So the metrics were quite small. Now then, if somebody comes in one day to start training with those two kids and they get 60, like, well, that's impressive. And then if a month after they get 65, they get 68, and they show basically improvements and growth, what's quicker than what, because, you know, we work in tiny increments when you're working with fighters. You don't smash PBs week in, week out. It doesn't happen.
Like Crusher.
Yeah, especially when you're coming down in camp for the past 2 or 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks to the end, you start to lose a certain something, your calorie intake reduces. But when people are smashing PBs week in, week out, week in, week out, me as a coach, I'm going to have a look and go, wow, Sykes is on fire today. What's going on there? He's just taken 5 seconds off of 400 meters. He's just taken 15 seconds off. And, you know, remember the Chinese swimmers about 20 odd years ago, they're breaking world records by 21, 22 seconds. It was insane. And they'd never been ranked in the top 20 in the world, you know, by the Olympic Committee. It's like, you got to, if you are a coach and you see massively improved performance, what's going on?
Yeah. You want to go on to part 2, Julian?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.